Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering One Piece, episodes 233 and 234. In these episodes, it looks like the Going Merry might actually be irreparable. I still can't decide what direction the show is going to go on with this. But the main thing for me in this episode is how everybody has got Usopp's back. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Gabriela for commissioning this episode. What's up? Gabriela in the house. She's not in the house. She's there somewhere. But thank you, Gabriela. So these two are really fun episodes. I just have to say, there have been a lot of big moments in this show that are supposed to be extremely high impact. And you guys know they don't always land for me. But when our friends decided that they were going to get together and just absolutely level the Frankie family because they fucked with Usopp, that was a real chills moment for me. Definitely had a bit of a oh yeah, get them guys. I was just very, very into it. So let's begin at the beginning here. We pick up basically where we left off with everybody. We have Luffy and Nami still at the shipyard coming to terms with what's going on with the Going Merry. And at the same time, we have Sanji and Chopper, and they are both sort of sitting there going, what is happening with Nico Robin? And Sanji is thinking about what they were told regarding Nico Robin's past and how they would eventually come to regret having her on their team. And he is just, vaguely I'm just really concerned about what it's going to turn out is going on here, because I vaguely feel like this has something to do with that. And that's pretty much what we get here. He decides that they should just turn around and go back to the Going Merry because they have no idea where to look for her. So they head that way. We go back to the shipyard. Luffy is in the denial stage of grief. He is just not willing to hear that there's not a way to repair the Going Merry. And a lot of the time on this show, I feel like I kind of understand where they're going to go, because there's an overall theme that usually pervades. And that theme tends to be never give up, always follow your dreams, always support your friends, never show doubt in people that you love, and it will always work out, which I think is incredibly dangerous, but that's fine. And it's just mostly that, right? Just push and you'll get there. And that's kind of what it feels like Luffy is trying to do on behalf of the Going Merry. Is if I can just throw enough money at it and deny what you guys, the best shipwrights in the world, are saying about my ship, I can just keep going forever as is, because I've decided it's going to be fine. And the shipwrights are kind of guy, look, that's just you deciding you're going to sail it until it breaks and sinks. is that the play? Is that what you want to do? Because we know what the fuck we're doing. And you not only do not, but you don't even really seem to understand what it is we're trying to tell you is the problem with this approach. And this is where I'm sort of like, are we going to have it be that despite everything, Luffy can still get what he wants, and that is the Going Merry? And this is completely separate from my, like, desire to see a different ship. I fully recognize and acknowledge that most of the people that are here in the chat, and I would guess a lot of, like, big fans who have watched this series repeatedly, have a real soft spot for the Going Merry because of what it is. It's their ship. It's the original. It's, you know, and I get that theoretically, but I just personally do not have that attachment to this ship at all. I haven't watched this series multiple times. I didn't really like the Going Merry's design to begin with and felt like it was just weird and not really on theme. And overall, all of that comes together with, yeah, all right, new ship. Let's see what's up. That, though, does not have anything to do with my desire, which is to see Luffy have to understand you can't always get everything just because you believe hard enough. And I have said this before. There's been a number of things where I'm just like, I really need for this to occasionally not work out, because it can feel like we're teaching kids something that's kind of toxic. But in the past, usually what that's been about is like people. And this is not a person. This is an object. And that is a different proposition. If you're going to teach kids that objects have, like, you know, a shelf life, I don't feel like that has the same kind of, like, negativity, maybe, that the author might associate with, like, sometimes people are just bad and you should give up on them. And so maybe this is something that we will see Luffy can't just overcome by sheer force of will. And it's sort of an interesting thing because, you know, we have a moment later on where, and I'm sorry, I'm kind of jumping around here, but I think I might just, like, do that for this episode. We have a moment later on where Zoro is talking to, I think, Chopper, and they're discussing the fact that it looks like they can't fix the Going Merry. And Zoro says, like, overcoming the more hardship you go through as a person, the stronger you get. But that isn't how it works for a ship. All of those wounds pile up. And I realized that philosophy is what bothers me about the overall, like, implications that the show is sort of trying to teach. And this is not me trying to take this show in particular too seriously. It's me thinking about how I absorbed messages from media when I was a kid. I have come to realize in my old age, lol, as an adult, how very much I took what I was seeing on screens pretty literally. And I didn't have parents that were around all the time. They both worked full-time jobs. I was left with a babysitter a lot. And a lot of the messages that I was getting were from media like television or from books. And so the expectation that I developed of what it was like to go to high school, what it was like to go to a college party, what it was like to go to Halloween parties, all of that stuff came from the media depiction of those things, which I know now are highly idealized in a way that is absolutely not in touch with reality unless people have insane amounts of money. But I didn't get that, and it took me a long time to really understand what I had seen was not real. And that tied in very much with my body image issues, because I would see girls, even cartoon girls, and think that is what I am supposed to look like. And if I don't, then I'm going to be the one in the cartoon that everybody is like, ugh, because there's always somebody, you know? So there's the dichotomy of just either you're hot or you're that. And I can't be that, so I have to look just like this. And I'm saying all of this to just sort of like, just emphasize how, knowing now that I am neurodivergent, how much this was like me trying to make sense of a world that I was not familiar with yet. But the fact that this is so prevalent, the kind of messaging, especially to kids, that you can just push hard enough and you'll always get it. I don't think like it's an inherently bad thing. It's just when it comes from absolutely every direction, you really do think if you don't get what you want, it's your fault, that you didn't push hard enough. There was something wrong with you and your desire wasn't pure enough, or your actions weren't like correct enough. So when Zoro says the more hardships people go through, the stronger they get, but a ship, those wounds pile up, it just bums me out, because it's the kind of thing that I know for me as a child, I would take to heart in a way that's like, if something hurt me, I would be like, well, I can't act hurt. This makes me stronger. Or I can't talk to somebody about why I'm hurt because that's a weakness. And generally, the concept of hardships make you stronger and better is an accepted wisdom. And I completely understand the general sense of where that's coming from, because life experience makes you wiser. And going through losses and failures and all of that 100% does help create character and make you appreciate things and understand certain things better. But when you're talking about hardships in general, that can mean all kinds of things. And the implication that just going through them makes you stronger, period, is so unkind and not compassionate at all. And it does not give people grace, because then the whole thing is really, if you're not strong afterwards, you either like didn't internalize the message right, or you're weak, or, you know. And look, sometimes hardship doesn't make you stronger. It just, sometimes it doesn't. So for it to be like a ship is different, those wounds pile up. They pile up on fucking people also. But we're just going to smooth sail right on past that part and only talk about how like it's an object that this happens to, when it's fucking people also. And if we're going to treat the Going Merry kind of like it's a person and a crew member, which everybody is sort of doing, I feel like, you know, we've all gone through these things together as a crew, and folks have seemed to wind up stronger because they have had support systems. They have had people who have their backs. And I just, overall, I am concerned that it's going to be, oh, we're able to save the Going Merry after all, because it turns out there's like something that is wrong with it that actually makes it stronger. Something weird, you know, and I don't even know what that would look like. But you guys know how resistant I am to this very particular kind of like message over and over. So I don't think it will come as a surprise to anybody that I kind of just took issue with the whole way that this was being talked about and presented. And again, I know I shouldn't be that deep with it, but I also can't pretend this stuff doesn't make an impression and doesn't matter, because it absolutely did for me. And I just am a lot clearer on that now and can see it so much more crisply in my memory where certain ideas came from. So Gus is saying, I'm thinking that Zoro meant purely physically, but I get what you mean. I mean, that's also physically not true, though, you know? You don't get hurt and then just wind up stronger after. In fact, that's rarely how that works. Usually, you get hurt and there is something that you have to deal with for quite a while, maybe forever, depending on what that injury even is and how old you are when you sustain it and all kinds of stuff. So that doesn't work either. In fact, that's probably like a worse comparison. But yeah, so anyway, the fact that everybody is digging in so hard and refusing to believe that the Mary can be repaired is making me feel like we're going to defy the odds and somehow manage to save the Mary after all. And I guess, you know, I just don't feel particularly strongly about that. And I don't know if I would, if I were to like rewatch the series and years pass and I'm like super invested and I become like a super fan, maybe my mind would change on that. But, ooh, excuse me, I don't know what that was. It was just my throat making sounds. But I'm kind of a fan of change in certain scenarios. And I think part of it for me with the Going Merry as well is that we don't spend a whole lot of time like hanging out on the ship in a way that makes me feel like that ship is distinct. We have like the fruit trees that grow on the ship. And I don't really remember seeing us picking fruit or hanging out around those trees. There's some time below decks where we're sleeping. There's some time in the kitchen. But you could draw anything and tell me that was the Going Merry and I'd probably be like, okay. Because that doesn't have the same like immediate recognition for me. The figurehead at the front does. That I immediately recognize. But it's not like, say, you know, in certain shows there will be like a kind of headquarters where everybody always gets together and you just know it. And it becomes like once maybe things shift and that's taken away. Like in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, for example, there's the Bronze and everybody goes and hangs out at the Bronze. And eventually that goes away. And the headquarters becomes the magic shop. And that is a place that's like very distinctive. The Bronze and the magic shops look like only when you're inside, you know that's where you are. And the Going Merry, I just don't quite have that connection to it as a location. I have a connection to it like as a, like from afar. But doesn't feel like the headquarters in my mind because that's like, it's just different. I don't know. So we'll see, but I feel like I would ordinarily have a very strong guess if this were dealing with more of a person than a ship. And since it's a ship, I'm like, maybe it will wind up different. And I don't know if that's true. That's really like the first half of the first of these two episodes is almost all about that. And the shipwright's trying to explain to Luffy what the keel is. And if there's damage to that, pretty much everything is built onto that. And there isn't really a way to repair that if there's enough damage to it, which I'm not sure is actually true in real life. I don't know anything about that. But that's what they're saying in the show. And when Luffy is like, all right, fine, we'll just build another ship that looks like the Mary, that bird chimes in and says, no can do. Basically, we like, no matter what we did, no ship is going to feel exactly the same. And you guys would be able to tell the difference, which was kind of a weird moment to me because I'm like, I mean, they wouldn't be able to tell the difference. They're not asking you to pretend to fix the Going Merry and just give them a new ship and they'll just like accept it. They're asking you to build a new ship that looks as close to their old ship as before. And that was the only thing that made me sort of go, okay, maybe we are going to do like a new ship with a really new look. Maybe this is the way the text is like explaining to us. If they do a new ship, I know that you could ask them to just make a copy, but they can't really do that and give us like an in-world reason why it actually has to be dramatically different. I hope so, because I'm just deeply curious about what happens if they go all out and get something that's new and like spend most of their money on it. I just don't know, like, I don't even know what I would ask for. You know, I suppose if we were going to have something that applies to, if we were going to have a ship that was big and that everybody had a little bit of territory, that would be ideal. So we could have like a weight room for Zoro. We could have a like doctor's office for Chopper. An invention room to work in for Usopp. Of course, a state-of-the-art kitchen for Sanji. For Luffy, all I can say is just like a huge pantry and dining room. Like, that's all I can think of for him. I genuinely don't know. Nico Robin, I guess a library, I suppose. Is that everybody? I feel like that's everybody, right? And that's just like, I genuinely have no idea if they could have a ship big enough for that to work. But that's just the theory in my head of what, if I were going to have my druthers, I would do. And that would also set up a much more sort of specific sense of place, because we would be spending, oh, I didn't get one for Nami. Nami, I'm just like, a vault? A vault. That's really all I can think of to keep all the treasure in. And I'm like, I don't know what. She's also a navigator, though. So you could have like a really amazing map room with lots of tools and log poses and things like that. I could see that. Yeah. And I feel like because the main places that we have ever spent time on the Going Merry are either in the kitchen or on the deck. We're occasionally down in the hold, but it's just a vague pan over everyone as they're sleeping usually. And that's sort of, it feels very general. If we have these specific spaces for everyone that they each get, I might grow more attached to a space because of getting to see everyone's personality on display in that kind of way. And I feel like then I might develop a real like attachment to things, because it feels like everybody was taken care of and sort of included in the concept of building the ship to begin with. Seraphim is in the chat. We know that Sanji's biggest dream for the ship is a fridge and pantry with a really solid lock on it. That's true. Yeah, I said like a big pantry for Luffy, but if it has a lock on it, Luffy wouldn't really love that. Luffy keeps wanting a statue. And I will tell you what, at first it was annoying, and now it's just really funny that he's just so set on having a fucking statue. I don't know why he is so into this concept, but he is super zeroed in. And at this point, I'm kind of like, maybe you should have a statue, guys. Maybe just do that for him, because he's clearly going to love it. And I don't see what harm it would do, except spending some money and probably taking up a bunch of space. But maybe that's all we would. Luffy wouldn't even need his own room. He would just need a statue of himself. He never really gets specific about what he wants the statue to be of. He just says a statue. So I'm going to say a statue of himself, because otherwise I don't really know. But yeah, that's really all I can think of. Anyway, so yeah, this is my like sort of spin out. If I were going to make the ship and it was like all of them and I wanted something for me, I would include a really nice bathroom, because having like a big tub and like a heater for the water and all of that would feel extremely luxurious. And I would be into it. I'm a big sucker for nice bathrooms. That's like, Owen and I are going on vacation starting tomorrow, and we're going to this cabin in Oklahoma to stay for 5 nights, longest vacation we're going to take in one place. And the biggest draw for both of us to this cabin was the gorgeous bathroom that has like a huge tub. It's got one of those showers that's got like 6 shower heads that's for 2 people, and the showers come in from all different directions. And there's a hot tub outside, and honestly, that would fucking do it for me. Seraphim says the best part of that is he does now have a statue of himself. Oda's hometown is putting up life-size bronze statues of the whole crew. That's so awesome. I love that so much. I love when fictional characters get statues devoted to them. Because, let's be honest, most of the historical figures who really existed who get statues made of them were trash and bad people and very garbage. There's like a statue devoted to the, quote, father of gynecology, and he was a fucking, like, psychopath who dissected black women with no anesthesia and against their will. Like, there's a statue of this man, and that is what he did. Like, why? Yeah. When we could have statues of the fucking Straw Hats. There's a statue of Columbo in a city in, like, is it Turkey? I don't remember if it's because his family is from there or what it is, but I just adore any time we just get a character who is so famous that they are given a monument to, like, commemorate them forever somewhere. I just think that is so cool. So anyway, I like this idea. I say everybody gets their own space. Luffy himself gets a statue. Done deal. I would be fine with that. You can, I was about to say, you could keep the, like, weird sheep's head figurehead, but that's the part I don't like. That's the part I just think is not just weird. So if I were going to pick a figurehead, I guess I could make that the statue. You could make it be Luffy, which isn't too far off from what a lot of the pirates out there do, is they basically have whatever their theme is like every aspect of the design of their ship ties in thematically. So if you're going to have the Straw Hat Pirates and you have a figure in a straw hat as your, like, figurehead, that works for me. But anyway, okay, so there's a moment when they're in the middle of this where a dude comes forward. He's one of the government agents to talk to Iceberg. And this guy he has a really long, like, curved nose. And I know when I say that, it sounds like I'm saying a hook nose. But when you use the word hook nose, you think of like a wide nose with like a tall brow ridge kind of thing. And it's not. It's like a skinny, like, comes out and curves down like a sickle a little bit. And he can smell pirates, which I don't know. Like, is his superpower just smelling in general? I don't know. But this guy is in a suit, and he is flanked by 2 other men in suits. And because, obviously, there's a bounty out on Nami and Luffy, they are told to get out of the way. And this guy comes forward, and he has a very shady look to him. His name is Corgi, which is incongruous. And Iceberg just says, "Good morning, Corgi. I'm not around today," which I am really into Iceberg as a character, I have to say. I love it. I really do. So then he's like, "All right, well, I wanted to talk to you about something." And Iceberg says, "I don't like you. Go away." And honestly, that was an entire mood. I wish so much that I could just do this. He asks, "Are you a child?" And Iceberg says, "No, I'm a fully grown man," as he picks his nose. They keep having him pick his nose. Do not care for this. Not at all. And this guy says, "I brought a good deal for you today. Please hear me out. Let's talk this over in private." And he gestures away, and the men are talking about how this guy keeps coming back, that he's really persistent. But nobody knows what it is that he's trying to make a deal about. They're thinking that it's something political, potentially. But there's some of them that seem like it doesn't bother them, that it's none of their business. And others that feel like it's suspicious that this keeps happening and they're trying to figure out what it could be. And we don't find out, I don't think, if I'm not mistaken. Because what happens is we get distracted with Luffy discovering that the bags he picked up when they had to hide feel really light. One of them, which is the one Nami has, is normal. And that one still has the money in it. But the other two, as they discover when they open them, have nothing in them, and they aren't even their bags because they're like patched inside. So clearly there is a switcheroo that was made earlier. We also have this guy, what is his name? Paul, who calls Nami like shameless. And then at one point she's sitting and he's like, "You can't sit like that." And I was just like, this is such a weird thing to do. I don't know what they're thinking with like adding in a character who's just going to constantly like slut shame Nami. But it is a weird vibe when I have just decided to accept that even though Nami is in a tiny skirt and often like sitting or standing in ways that would probably mean you could see right up it, I have accepted that in this universe it's totally acceptable and fine, and it just doesn't work the same way. But now we have a character that's drawing attention to these moments very specifically to be like that. No, even in this world, that's what happens. And I'm just like, but why? Why couldn't we have just let it be like a cartoon thing that's not real? And we have to now start like taking this seriously. I just really wish we weren't. So they discover that this has happened, and then they're like, well, what the hell? Where did it go? And of course, they're making so much noise as they're making this discovery that everybody is coming over and being like, "Hey guys, the government agent is still kind of close by. You're supposed to be hiding. What are you making so much noise for? You're going to get his attention." And when they explain, the guys sort of go in a circle just about like, "Well, did you take the money?" "No, I didn't take the money." So finally, this dude with the tattoos is talking to like the square longnose, and he says, "Why were you with the Frankie family earlier?" And forgive me guys, I don't remember any of these guys' names. And square longnose is like, "I wasn't with them at all. What do you mean?" And Nami and Luffy are overhearing this and realize this guy probably saw Usopp because he recognized the long nose. So Nami heads out to track down Usopp and figure out what the hell is going on. Sanji goes off in one direction. He doesn't even really tell her where he's headed. He just says, "Just wait, Usopp." And she gets on one of these little gondolas. And after getting like directions to the Frankie family hideout, she heads out by herself in that direction. So, on the way, we have this like really awful moment. She sees a bunch of people that are sort of gathered together around Usopp. And this boy's face is crumpled. And when she goes over, you guys, I don't know if it was the voice actor. I don't know if it was like the animation here. But this broke my heart Do you hear me? This hurt me. She's asking him, are you okay? What happened? And Usopp can barely talk. And she's like, was this the Frankie family? And he says, yeah, because I'm weak. They took the money. How am I going to face the others? And the voice actor is so good here. He just manages to infuse this moment with such profound shame and self-loathing. Like, Usopp looks like he's on the verge of death here. And it's just that, like, his own safety is not what's on his mind at all. It's just how pathetic he is. And y'all know, I have said before how difficult it must be when you are in a crew with a bunch of people who are like basically superheroes and you don't have that kind of ability. And that isn't to say that Usopp doesn't have, you know, his strengths and his things that he can do that they can't. But that is not something that's going to save you in moments like this. And we see even he goes to like face the Frankie family later, and he has had some time to prepare, and he has his like weapons with him that he has invented and stuff. And it frankly just doesn't matter. And I think that if he were given time and more like resources, maybe he could construct some stuff that would have been more effective. But as it stands now, I just really fucking sympathize with him, especially considering he doesn't know yet that the Mary can't be repaired. So he is taking this especially hard because this is the money they were going to use for that. And even if they can't get the Mary repaired, this is the money that they would have used to get a new ship, you know? And now it's gone. And in his eyes, this is totally because he is a weakling and he could not do anything to stop these guys. That sucks. Oh, I hated this for him so much. So yeah, this, we jump over to the Mary itself and the conversation that I pretty much talked about already between Sanji and Chopper and Zoro. And then we go over to the Frankie house. And we have the leader of this group counting the money and handing everybody like a pretty good chunk of it and letting them party and do whatever they feel like, while he himself goes to buy something on the black market. And they don't actually ever say what it is that the crew has been working toward all this time. But there is clearly something going on with the Frankie family altogether wanting to achieve a particular goal. And we get like a description of how they were never able to save up their money because, in short, they were constantly deeply irresponsible with their money. So it's kind of funny because they phrase it like, we were just never able to save up the money. And it's like, oh, you mean you just didn't? You were able to if you hadn't just bet everything and spent it all. But they are giving him the biggest chunk of this money to go buy whatever it is they've been talking about for some time. And I'm really curious about what it's going to turn out to be. So yeah, these dudes get left behind. The guy who's in charge of the Frankie family, we never get in this episode a clear look at him. I think it's next episode that we finally really see him. But the episode ends with this green light and all of this like dust and smoke as Usopp uses, I'm assuming, a bomb to break down their front door. Because Usopp has decided to take it upon himself to get the money back alone. And I was just I really understand why he feels like he has to do it this way. But I hated it so much. It's him being just driven by shame and embarrassment, you know, and that is just no way to live. So he comes in and he makes this stand. I said that we don't see the leader of the Frankie family in full this episode. I lied. We do. It's just at the very end of the episode. This guy is extremely unsettling. I do not care for him at all. He's got a weird sort of like poncho look on top. It's blue with stars, and stars are apparently a thing with this family. And there's like a collar that almost looks like a lion's mane. It's really weird. It's like his head is growing out of the center of a flower, kind of. And he has a metal mask and this weird, I can't tell if it's hair or if it's part of the mask that comes up in these big spikes all around his head. And I think that's supposed to be part of like the star motif, but it just looks fucking crazy. And Usopp just keeps yelling, "Give me the money back," as he's like throwing himself at these guys. And he is ineffectual. He's like kind of crying at one point, just like, "This money is so important to us. You guys don't understand." And the way that the leader of the family watches him makes me feel like there's a bit of sympathy there, a little bit. And he says something later about how, like, "I confess the fact that you came back here alone to take this money back, that is kind of badass. Like, good on you for having that courage. But, first of all, you're pirates, so you won't be able to, like, report us because nobody considers stealing from pirates to really be a crime. And you probably got this money from, like, nefarious dealings, so it's not really yours fairly either. So, yeah, just give it to us." And Usopp, understandably, is not prepared to take that deal. So he keeps trying to fight. And he makes a real try with another one of his like contraptions. And this dude just catches it. And nothing happens. It's just nothing. And then we have the members of the Frankie family gathering around Usopp. And y'all, again, this was so upsetting to me. I need you guys to get it. I was already so sad because of Usopp's attitude and the way he feels about himself with all of this happening. But then we have seen people mock him. We have seen people try and gang up on him. This is different. There is something about this that felt really cruel. And they're like holding his arms out to like expose him so that he can be kicked. They take his slingshot away and they're like making fun of it like it's for a child. And just fucking, there's a prolonged scene of him like on the ground as they are all just wailing on him. And he's begging for them to give the money back and they're just ignoring him and grinning as they like beat the absolute shit out of him. And it was so fucking sad. I hated this. I hated this so much. So it made it feel really fucking legit when the crew gets together and finds out what's going on. And they're like, "Oh, no, this shall not stand." Nami gets back to the Mary and tells the boys where Usopp is probably like where he was taken. And they're sort of like, they went to the spot where he had been because she told him to stay there. And there's like a blood trail going. So they begin to follow that. And then Luffy just falls out of the sky. And it turns out he was trying to imitate Long Square Nose and do this, like, you know, running, flying thing. He doesn't have great control of himself. And he falls right into the canal. And reminder, he cannot swim. And I don't feel anybody reacts with quite enough urgency to the fact that he looks like he's just drowning in front of them. But nevertheless, they get him out. And they are united here in that they are going to fucking go after him. So, oh, here it is. So that guy Corgi, he leaves the meeting with Iceberg and he says, "What a stubborn man. We still don't know whether or not he has it, but they send me out here every time. I wish they'd put themselves in my shoes." And I'm like, ooh, has what? What's going on? And Iceberg is sort of watching him with a sort of expression on his face like, yeah, that's right. Get the fuck out of here. And I'm just like, what is it? What do they think that he may have? Let's see. I'm trying to find the part where Khalifa like sort of explains a little bit. She says he's always angry when he leaves. What does he come to talk about? And this is like, obviously he wants something because he's always trying to suggest all kinds of deals. And Iceberg says, I always tell him I don't know what he's talking about and refuse. But we get a zero in on the poster of Nico Robin. And it seems like maybe that's what this guy is after. But the way that man, Corgi, said, we still don't know if he even has it. It doesn't feel like it's like they're looking for Robin specifically. Maybe something that Robin did or has or made. I don't know. But I find it interesting that like Iceberg doesn't tell Khalifa. He just tells her, I always say I don't know what he's talking about. So I'm like, why doesn't he let her know even what's going on here? So we go back to the boys and they find Usopp again, just fucking beat to a pulp. He is in such bad shape because this is the second beating he's taken today. And then we get a moment of each of the boys looking at him and getting like an expression on their face as they sort of prepare themselves. Luffy adjusts his hat. Sanji lights a cigarette. Zoro ties his bandana on a little bit tighter. And Chopper like breathes steam out of his nose. And they're like, all right, it's fucking on. And they begin walking toward the Frankie family home. And I will tell you what, because I hated so much watching what Usopp was going through with getting ganged up on and beaten, I thought this episode had been a lot longer than it actually was, because it felt like that went on forever. And I thought that when they were like, all right, let's go and like fucking knock this house down, I thought that the episode was about to cut right there and that we were about to like end the episode and I was about to be pissed. And I was so relieved when I checked and saw we were only halfway through the episode and I was like, oh, sweet. Maybe we'll actually get them kicking the Frankie family's ass this episode. I wasn't positive still because sometimes this show will draw things out a lot. So I was like, maybe we're just going to get like 10 minutes of them walking to the house and standing in front of it and posturing, and we still won't get the fight. But we do, and I was so happy. So we have them like with a series of flashbacks of all of these moments of Usopp that they're thinking about. Basically, the reasons he's our friend and we are going to do this thing. And I absolutely love this energy. At one point, one of the guys tries to like stop them by being like, well, wait, the money. And Sanji is just like, it's not even about the money anymore. And I think it's Zoro who's like, you're damn right. And I was like, oh, I love this energy. I love it so much. So there's a giant dude, the one in the cowboy hat, who saw them like trading in their gold initially. And he starts to leave to go get more booze or food or something. And these guys are all standing there as he opens the door. He towers over them. And Luffy just draws back and punches this guy in the face and sends him flying backward. And the crew is all already like, oh God, that guy is giant. And they just sent him sailing. This is maybe not a group to fuck with. But they're kind of like in the corner here. Now, as we find out, there is a rear exit that they almost all are ready to turn and run to. But for a moment, we just have Chopper, Zoro, Luffy, and Sanji standing in a row, staring everybody down and being like, yeah, we're here to completely ruin your day. And we have another giant dude in this armor coming forward and being like, we're going to handle you. So there's only 4 of them. And how many of us are there? No problem. We'll take care of it. So this guy's walking forward. He has this weird sort of like afro hat that's like covering his ears. It looks like a hat. I don't know if it is. And Luffy begins sort of like punching at him. And I wasn't totally sure what was going on here. It turns out this is his cannon, but he has to sort of build up speed by punching like really quickly and repeatedly. So a bunch of the guys in the room are like, what is he even doing? There are cannons out there that can't even get through this armor, and he thinks he's going to just punch through it. That's not going to work. And then Luffy builds up speed, and there is this like blinding white light. And this guy also goes flying, and there is a hole in the front of his armor right where the star was. Basically like, hey, thanks for providing a target for me to focus on when I was doing this. So yeah, this is when everybody starts to be like, okay, maybe we should take this a little bit more seriously. One of the guys is like, let's have a talk first. And then, all right, fire the cannons. And this is when Zoro gets to come forward. And he uses his 3-sword style. And he cuts all of the cannonballs in half. And then he cuts one of the cannons in half. And rightfully, these dudes are like, okay, you know what? And they decide they're going to flee. But there's Sanji, and he is stopping them and saying, y'all are the ones that started this fight, and now you're going to go running like a bunch of cowards? That's pathetic. And he does what's called in the dub party table course, which I love because it's like he's kicking like 10 of them at the same time. So I guess it's just supposed to be like, oh yeah, a big party. You know, we've got a big party at this table, and it's the kick course. So I'm going to kick all of them. It's just such a doofy name, and I just really liked it. I thought that was hilarious. So again, all of these guys go down in moments. Sanji is kicking the fuck out of this one dude's jaw, like with his legs straight up the way he does. So when they realize the back door is cut off, another dude is like, all right, the windows, use the windows. And then we see Chopper use a rumble ball. Now, I will say, I have said before, Chopper is always treated like he just can't fight, but he can be big and he can be intimidating. And I want to see more of that. And I was so excited to see him use a rumble ball. And animate him in that way where his eyes are like pale and his pupils are these pinpricks, so he looks really threatening. And then he gets down on all fours and his antlers grow like 3 times their usual size with all of these like pointy bits, and he looked so scary, and I was like, yes, this is the chopper. I love that he's still got his tiny little backpack on. It's like embedded in between his shoulder blades because he's fucking huge right now. So yeah, he goes for these guys and just mows them fucking down, tossing them around with his antlers. It is the best. I love this so much. So satisfying. And this one dude says something about how like, oh, did you want the money that like weak guy has? In the subtitles it says the worthless guy had, but in the voiceover or the dub it's the weak guy. And I was like, I really don't feel like I would use that language with them, sir. You've got to see that they are not happy with you and like shit talking their friend. Not the way to go. And this is when he's like, well, the money isn't here. Our boss took it to go get something and I don't even know where it is that he's going. So I can't tell you how to find him. No matter how much of a rampage you go on, that money won't come back. And Luffy just fucking punches him into the wall. And this was when Sanji says it's not even about the money. And Zoro, yeah, it's too late. And I'm like, it's too late. I mean, you've already leveled the place. But then the camera pulls out and there's still a good, like, 15 guys. And Luffy is clenching his fists and says, we will beat you up so bad you won't even have bones remaining. Which honestly was a pretty good line. I really liked that moment. It really was just like a line that would probably feel super corny in a context where I wasn't 100% invested in the fight. But because I am all about absolutely wrecking these guys, because I am just horrified by what they did to Usopp, it hit dead on for me. And I was like, yes! I was psyched, guys. I was psyched. This whole scene, it was just like everything I wanted. So these dudes are still gonna do a fucking cannon shot and they shoot all kinds of random shit. There's like watermelons and barrels and like plates, all kinds of like whatever they found. And they're determined to like not run away. They've really changed their tune on that, but they keep saying like there's only 4 of them. And each of them though is worth like 10 of you. So we get a really quick montage of several attacks. There's an explosion of fire and we just see the like head Frankie with the 2 women who are kind of the animation makes them look a lot like Pearl from Steven Universe, but they each have square hair, very odd looking. But he stops and is like, is that fireworks? And everybody's like, it's coming from the Frankie house. And some dude is just like, what are they doing now? They're always doing some shit. And as they say that, they look over and see that Frankie is standing right there. And they're like, oh shit. And they run off. But they don't seem at all concerned. They just think that it's the guys partying. That this is just them, you know. Behind the mask, Frankie says it's okay once in a while. It's a beautiful day. And just climbs onto this train. So I am assuming that it's just going to be him that they have to deal with because it seems like their crew is pretty much gone. When we cut back to the house, it's them wrapping their wounds as they look around at all of the Frankie family bodies that are piled up in the rubble of where the house used to be. And I think it's Sanji who's like, well, shit. It looks like they really don't know where the money is. He was like, it's not about the money. And I believe him. He was definitely telling the truth. But he was hoping that, yeah, there would be some way of like finding it in the end anyway. And it turns out, these guys didn't know shit. And the worry, of course, is even if we do find Frankie, if he's spent all the money, what the hell are we going to do then? Meanwhile, Chopper is over here patching up poor Usopp, who's going to be just solid bandages, and says, I really need him to be carried out on a stretcher. So can you guys come and help me? And they decide that they had better just return back to the ship. And they still don't really know what's going on with Robin and where she's gone. So probably should just regroup. And Sanji calls up to Luffy and says, hey, about the ship. And Luffy turns to him and says, I've decided. And I'm like, what though? And he says, let's say goodbye to the Going Merry here. And I was like, a word? So I think that it's real. I think that we are. But I don't know. You know, like, it might be that, by letting go, he manages to save the Merry after all. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, guys, I was just so into the second episode. Poor Usopp. Every time that I am reminded that he is just a fucking regular guy mixed in with these maniacs and he has to hold up his end. They should have brought Zoro and Sanji to carry the money, frankly. They should not have trusted this to Luffy or Usopp. Nami, I can trust Nami just as that she has her head on. She isn't a fighter, but she's also not going to just fucking walk away without noticing or throw it into a canal. But probably having the two of them handling a lot of the money was just a bad call to begin with. But I was so happy to see how completely they wreaked vengeance on the Frankie family. Just very, very excited about it. All right, I'm going to wrap up. Thank you guys again so much for hanging out with me. Thank you to Gabriela for commissioning this episode. I hope you all are enjoying the coverage. And until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.